So you have to have a personal brand to your employees, to your partners, to your shareholders. You have to have a public and a very guarded private aspect too, right? So you have to know where those boundaries are when you're sharing yourself on social media and your brand philosophy.
Welcome to Connecting Business. I'm your host, Christina Munoz. In today's episode, we're talking all about values. So I want you to take a second to think of your favorite brands. What draws you to them? What do they stand for? And how important is it for them to match with what you stand for? Today's guest is an expert in values marketing. You have probably seen the hugely popular film that depicts the horse soldier story, 12 Strong. And he's here today to share how Horse Soldier Bourbon markets and lives its values. I want to welcome Scott Neal, Chief Operating Officer of American Freedom Distillery and co-owner of Horse Soldier Bourbon. Thank you so much for joining us today. How are you doing?
I'm doing fine. I'm here in Tampa, Florida, just enjoying the sunny weather. And thank you for having me on and at least, tell a little bit about our story.
This is so special for us. So thank you. We're so excited to have you with us today to talk about the importance of brand values. But first, where does the term horse soldier originate from? Fill us in.
So right after 9/11, and you can imagine, the country was really kind of put back on its heel. You had a lot of anger and uncertainty. The command authority at the time wanted America's response to those horrific attacks, so they sent small teams of Green Berets and our CIA partners behind the lines to link up with the Mujahideen. How the Mujahideen was getting around on the battlefield was on horseback, hence the name Horse Soldier. So you have two parts of this. You have the horse soldier story made famous in books and movies and the Statue of Ground Zero, and then a story about friends that transitioned out of the military and started a bourbon brand called Horse Soldiers.
Okay, so for those who don't know the story or haven't seen the movie, fill us in. What happened?
So, by 19 October 2001, two special forces teams were sent behind the lines. The mission was really to hold up into the mountains, try to conduct link up, right? Total unconventional warfare with any kind of resistance that was already fighting the Taliban and Al Qaeda. That first day we linked up with General Rashid Dostum. He came riding in on 30 horseback. Within a week, we had over 350 horsemen. And within 3 weeks, we had 3,500 horse cavalry and 1,000 infantry. And we began to basically attack the Taliban. And within less than 100 days, 100 Green Berets had overtaken Afghanistan almost 20 years ago to this day.
You say it all so casually, but I just have to pause and share how remarkable this is. And if you have seen the movie, you get a little taste for it. I mean, the intensity. And of course, for me and my children who are huge Marvel fans, the fact that it's Chris Hemsworth, we've got Thor going on. So, I mean, they didn't watch the movie, of course, but very incredible story. And like I say, you say it so casually. I want to just honor you and say, wow, because it's not a small deal. This is a huge deal. So thank you to you and your service and to everyone that was there with you. This is remarkable.
Thank you very much. It wasn't just us. We had the entire weight of the nation from the Air Force to Marines. It really, what you didn't see from the movie is just, all of America and the armed forces coming together. And we just happened to be the very tippy tip of the spear. And we were a little bit of Peter Pan, kind of, because nobody had any expectations of what to do and how to do it. And we were sent in, surrounded on purpose, and we had to fight our way out.
That's a great point. This was new. No one had ever been through this or done this. So I love that we're talking about values, because I'm going to say humility is clearly one of your life values. But so how did this transition and this collaboration into the bourbon side of this?
So, and it's a story of this country, and it doesn't matter if you come from a business and you just sold and now you're the rich that you've ever experienced and you transition, or you're an immigrant coming into this country and you had nothing, a few dollars in your pocket, and you so many stories in America where you go from one kind of extreme, one lifestyle, one past, one ethnic background, and you come, and how do you make it, right? And so for us, we wanted to live the American dream we'd been defending. And the way we knew that was to pursue something that we all knew nothing about, right? We knew nothing about Afghanistan. We were thrown into the middle of the fight. We were obviously successful because we survived. And we just found this passion when we started going to craft distilleries that, we could do it too. Matter of fact, I think we could do it better, right? And that's every entrepreneurial mindset. And then, we started, going to craft distilleries, but instead of doing what tourists do, we said, we'll carry the grains. We'll turn on the stills. We'll clean up at night if you teach us your business. And that's what we did.
Wow. And so how long has this been going on, and how much do you have out there?
So we started this in 2015. We spent about a year going to Scotland and learning in Scotland. We went to Ireland and learned in Ireland. We actually taught ourselves how to sail. We did a sailboat race to Cuba, and then we jumped ship and we learned how to make rum in Cuba. So it took us about a good year to kind of do what I call knowledge dominance, know everything about the business. We asked 1,000 questions to 1,000 people. We're very curious as Green Berets, you know what I mean? You just get to know people. You break bread, you share a drink, and they start sharing their skills with you. And today, we have a beautiful brand. Our wives are involved. Our kids work here. I'm on the road constantly telling the Horse Soldier story, and then the Horse Soldier Bourbon story as well.
Oh my goodness, I love you do. You say it so casually, but it's so cool. All the things you've done, they're very unique. A lot of people will never get to experience those things. But how cool that you're now sharing this, and
Thank you.
customers and people can learn about you and come in. And you mentioned your family. I want to know about your kids real quick. 4 kids, is that right?
4 kids, it's interesting when you start counting all the kids in our special forces kind of brotherhood. We must have came home quite a bit, I guess. So, John and Elizabeth have 8 kids. Mark has 4. Will has 11 kids.
Wow.
So we have a big family to provide for, right? And that's how we see this. We see this business now as a legacy for 100 years, because we can't give our kids our war medals, right? I can't give them a Foot Locker full of old memories. I can give them a thriving American business, though. And that's what we decided to do.
Well, so thankful you all came home, and that, yes, you
Yeah.
did get to come home. I thought 4 sounded like a lot of kids, but man, nothing compared to 8 or 11.
Yes.
Huge
Yes.
family, legacy happening here, getting passed on. Absolutely love it so much. Okay, so we're going to jump in to values. And I recently saw a stat that said 71% of consumers prefer buying from companies that are aligned with their numbers. That's huge, especially in
Yes.
anything regarding business. 71% of anything is a lot. So what is it? Why do you see, and why do you think that people are drawn to companies that share their values?
Because people buy things they're comfortable with. And what makes them comfortable is that shared value aspect, that kind of identity, right? When we go around the country and we talk about the Horse Soldier story, they're fascinated and they wonder if they could do it. But when they buy our product, right, they're making a personal choice, especially in consumer goods, right? And we get to tell what our values are, and they decide if they share them or not. And the good thing about it is we're very open about our values. We didn't shift and change them for the consumer mindset as we're trying to attract what the latest trend is. We said this is us, right? We have authenticity, we have integrity, we have family balance and work-life balance, right? All of these things were very open and honest, especially coming from a group that were so secretive and private, right? And when they find out that we share those same values, they can now relate to us, whereas they don't know if they could relate about our secret, past and warrior kind of ethos. But when you share the kind of people we are and our family values and our work ethic, they instantly resonate.
So we're going to get into the how in a little bit here, but I'm just curious that a lot of times business owners may be worried about closing off a section of the consumers that maybe don't resonate with the values. Have you ever had an anti-military or I don't know what's out there, but that closes off that section of consumers?
Well, one, you have a bit of uninformed prejudice. And when I say that is like, how did you go from serving our country? I get it. You were brave and you were there at the time the country needed you. How do you know anything about making a delicious, yummy consumer product? So I have to bridge that gap by telling them about our journey, right? And about history in America. Think about Revolutionary War. They all fought. They went back to their farms. They made spirits. If you look at your favorite brands and consumer brands, they were started by veterans, or if they served in World War II, they all came home. Once I crossed that kind of uninformed prejudice, right? How did you make a great product? I don't understand it. Then they're like, I get it totally. So for us, it's about communicating. And then what's my promise to my customer, right? Because you are consuming something. And I talk about our fascination with, we only have two ingredients that I like to say, Mother Nature and Father Time. And that bridges a lot of people's gaps, whether you're affluent on one end or you're diverse on another end, or, all of these things that we have in our society. They wonder if maybe we're too militaristic in our approach, and that's not it at all. It's just communication. That's it. Brand storytelling.
Oh, love that. It is all storytelling, all communication. So let's get into the nitty gritty.
Yes.
How do you do that? How you've got authenticity, integrity, and the journey and the story. How do you communicate that to your consumers?
Well, one, you start with the platforms. Obviously, I giggle every time because you take a group that was the most secret in the world. Nobody really knew about the horse soldiers until Hollywood made a movie, which we didn't even participate in, right? The book
Really?
we didn't participate in. So all the stories were told about you. But now that we're retired, we're comfortable enough to share our experiences, right? So we do a lot of storytelling, even in COVID, when you cannot travel from location to location, and tell why your bourbon's better than, this bourbon or that bourbon. We had to do it virtually. And we adapted very quickly, and we started hosting virtual speakeasies. We would invite bartenders in that were out of work, and we would let the consumers tip them through electronic means, so it got away, and they would talk about how to make their favorite drink. So for us as a group, how do you communicate? There's platforms today, and you have to be very savvy, and that's why we have our kids, right? They grew up in this. They could turn it on, they could adapt it, do it. On the other end, how do you speak to your customer? You have to share your sacrifices. You have to share a bit of yourself. So when we do a bottle signing, we have hundreds of people that line up, and we actually spend more time listening to their story of service and sacrifice. So we're very good listeners as a brand as well.
Well, I have to take a side note here to ask about accuracy, because if you guys weren't involved with the movie or the book, did you say? So how accurate was it? Just out of curiosity.
Well, first of all, it's accurate that Chris Hemsworth is a handsome man. I can testify that.
We all agree to that.
Yes, okay.
Okay.
So there you go.
Okay.
What the movie got right was a small team, alone and unafraid, on a very impossible mission, and the challenges of weather and terrain, and an overwhelming enemy that had all the technology and the ferocity of, committed people to their freedom. Now, then you get into the nitpicking. I'm sure if you ever had an uncle that served, or a father, then they're like, we didn't wear that exactly like that. We would have never done it. That becomes the fantasy football aspect of watching a military movie. So we're very proud of it. We did participate in a documentary called Legion of Brothers, and we did because our wives got to be involved. So imagine, you always see how brave and handsome Chris Hemsworth is. He was a soldier, and he represented somebody is out there, but you don't get to see what 20 years of service has done, and the strength of our wives, and the tenacity and resiliency of our children. And that's where the documentary that we participated in really highlights that.
Wonderful. And so I know that I've had relatives, grandparents that have been in war and through war. And I'll be honest, they don't talk about it. They don't talk about it. They don't want to talk about it. I'm a journalist by trade, so I'm sitting there pulling as much as I can. How is it that this group of you have been able to? I mean, we always hear about PTSD and all the things that you saw and went through, but yet you're able to do it in a positive way and still bring these positive values to the consumer and to your communities.
I think, you have to be, because we have a forward-facing brand, right? And we do sell a product, and we're part of that product. Is veterans, when you're in the foxhole and when you're around the fire, and there are some funny, humorous things in life. So we're naturally storytellers. You got somebody from Harlem, you've got somebody from South Dakota, you've got a cowboy from Texas. You put them all together and you cannot help but share and entertain each other throughout the chaos that goes around. So when you come home, believe me, in VFWs and American Legions and all of these other traditional places, there was a lot of talking going on. A lot of healing comes through talking and communicating. Now, in front of media, once again, you don't talk about Fight Club.
Right, that's the rule.
Break it a little bit. Now, I spend more time talking about the positive side of my service than the kind of the roadkill side or the traffic accident side. There's a lot of people driving up and down the road, and you got a traffic jam because everybody wants to stare at the crash. Right. So it's the same thing when you talk to veterans. You want to know how they're doing and everything. You also kind of want to hear that story. You know what I mean? And how do you share the other side of your experience in the military as well? That's all. That's my formula.
Oh, I love it. You make it sound so simple. So tips for other entrepreneurs, other business owners out there when it comes to communicating your brand and telling your story. What would you say to us?
I would say realize it's your brand, right? You, whether you're not the face on the box or the picture, you're what drives this business, right? So you have to have a personal brand to your employees, to your partners, to your shareholders. You have to have a public and a very guarded private aspect too, right? So you have to know where those boundaries are when you're sharing yourself on social media and your brand philosophy. It has to mirror yourself, but you also have to have a little bit behind the curtain, a little separation as well. So a tip is brand yourself just as much as you brand your business.
Ooh, very good. I love that advice. And so talk about with bringing that message into marketing all the way down to the packaging.
So, we let the wives look at the packaging because they're very visual and tactile. They like to touch things. When we first started going to craft distilleries, the guys are like, wow, this is delicious and yummy. And I could feel it going down. The wives spent an hour touching the label, looking
This is what we do.
See, that's the gift of perception and angles and eyes. So when we looked at our bottle, for example, and you can see it behind us, we have a beautiful metal label, right? The wives wanted bar jewelry because if you think about, sitting and looking, you're 20 feet away and what catches your eye. And they said it because it's also like your perfume bottles on your vanity, right? You have your very special ones. You have a every day. Well, our branding, we had to be consistent because now we have so many consumers and other businesses that we have the brand police, and they're like the old sergeant majors that looked at your uniform, right? And is your rank on right, or is your ribbon straight? So we had to carry that with us all the way to the colors, the font styles. The process of introducing our brand and our expression of who we were took a long time. Why? Because we have to live with that decision for 10 years because of the money we invested. We actually, when we first started, we hired another company to work with our branding and we fired them because they didn't get us. Everything that was shown to us is like, that's not us. That's not us. And it made us determined to kind of do it on our own. And that's why we now know that we own our branding, right? That's why we guard it too. You have to guard your branding.
Good for you. I come from the PR marketing world, and we hear that a lot, that somebody's fired a team because they weren't representing their values and their brand. And it's hard if you're not in there. So I commend you for doing that. And I love that you're using the gifts that we're given. The women are just good at that stuff. So let them do the looking at that and the details. And so when it comes to online, you mentioned some COVID and what you guys did in the midst of all of that. How do you be sure that those values and branding comes across in person, which is sometimes a little easier, as well as online?
Well, online, what's unique about online is people naturally when you're watching a TV show, you also sit on your tablet and you Google about the show now, right? It's the same thing when I have people in the audience, they're already Googling and finding out, or before they see you. So people have access to a tremendous amount of information. But our online presence is 24 hours a day, 7 days a week in multiple languages. So it has to share our values, and just the subtext and the subtleness of our words need to resonate as well, right? So I'm constantly also looking at reviews. I'm constantly also looking at how other partners, like a retail shop, is communicating about us. Are they trying it too much military, right? Because that's not talking to the product, it's talking to our past. So you have to be very hawkish, but realize that that is a shining, a blinking billboard 24/7 on the virtual space that you have to be aware of.
And it can be so difficult. And I wonder, you have somebody that has to have the final say, because if you may disagree on what this word says and how this comes across, and so you really have to work together on that kind of stuff, right?
Well, we have to work from our younger children who are young adults. They read the same sentence differently. They see the image differently. So as we try to promote our lifestyle aspects, they can't be a bunch of, and I'm going to use my kids' term, a bunch of old dudes, right? Where's the young kids?
Right.
Tell me how fancy they can be. So it really is the echo chamber of the family and our values that we communicate. Now, sometimes we have to have decisions, and by position we decide. But it's the process of our business of input that we value everybody's view and angle, and we gather it, and then we execute it. Though that's the other side, is once we agree, we accept it, and we move to the next challenge.
What I'm really feeling here, that word authenticity, is though you are an authentic family.
Yeah.
You do work together. I don't think you can fake that. So if you don't have that kind of family, this isn't going to work. So you've got that authenticity there that I think really helps make you successful.
Yeah,
So
every photo you
speaking,
see of us is with our family. Now, there are some social media pictures that have pretty people in them, and I laugh and giggle because I'm like, that's not us. And well, we went through that, where we had a stage where, it's kind of this bar scene, and a beautiful woman and a beautiful gentleman, they're on their first date, and it's like, okay, that's awesome, because it's probably, better than my ugly mug and, my wife who's shy, who, you know what I mean? So I get it. The authenticity, though, especially when you consume the product and you put it in your body, people now pay more attention. 20 years ago, I drank to be somewhere else emotionally, right? Or I did something, I put something on. Today, consumers are so conscious of what the things are they're putting inside their body. They smell a rat very quickly. And they tell everybody else that this is not true. These aren't the right ingredients. So for us, just be open and honest in the beginning and share how much meticulous attention to detail, just like we would in the military, we do with our products.
wow, and that's why it translates so well. So going back to straight up business ROIs. So what is the return on investment with values and community? And is it quantifiable? And how do you do it if it is?
Well, there's one thing called sustainability, and it becomes challenging as a new start business. You can fluff the words out there to people. You can put green in your labels. You see a lot of this, and there's supposed to be visual signals that I have to trust you that you're doing the right thing. As somebody who's developing a very large production facility, the money we're going to have to invest is generational. Right? It adds millions of dollars more to be that conscious, because technology, we're on the edge of innovation. Well, consumers have to understand that risk that we're taking to then provide it for them, right? And that risk is a little bit of increase in pricing, but it's also back to the authenticity. If you want this to be the best quality product for you to consume, and you want us to find alternative power, to find recyclables, to really lead the industry out of 200 years of tradition, we'll do that. But we're going to deliver an ultra premium, luxurious product, and we hope the consumer resonates with that value.
Wow, it's really knowing who you are, what you're doing, and then who your audience is.
Yeah, because we care. Like I say, we're leaving this for our kids, not only our business, but this earth. So it's true from us on conservation. We are also conservative conservationists. I still hunt. I consider that conservation of our land and our wildlife, right? The wrong kind of conservation leads to decimation. It's the same thing because we farm, right? We cut down trees for barrels. All of this, we want to know what our partners are doing, and do they share our same values as well? And it's part of an interview process.
Wow, I mean, that keeps it all intertwined, all together, all under that same umbrella, if you
Yep.
will. And so, talk to me about giving back to the community and the communities that you're all in.
Well, giving back is part of our culture, right? If you're talking about service members that would jump on a hand grenade to save their best friend, right? So we're very involved in the veterans outreach portion of this. We do a lot of, we have a special bottle called Commander Select. These bottles, when we appear at charity events with other charity partners, they've gone from anywhere to $20,000 to $30,000 a bottle for a signed bottle.
Wow.
And that impact is because the emotion of the story, but people came to give, right? The other thing is every year we have a great adventure. We partner with a nonprofit like the Warrior Sailing Foundation. We want to learn how to sail. They taught us, and then we sailed in a sailboat race, right? This year, we're actually going to Saipan, and we're learning how to dive again, and we're diving on old World War II wrecks to recover the crews and repatriate them back to the U.S. so their family members can have closure. So that is our corporate values of taking time off, right? Having a big adventure. We're Peter Pan still. We got to have old guy Red Bull, right? Our wives get to go. Our children get to go on these great adventures with us now. So we have our balance of family life, and we do it for some other reason greater than ourselves.
Well, we talk a lot about work-life balance here, and I always call it the elusive work-life balance. But for you to really take the time and energy to make sure that that happens, but you're still staying in your brand, in your authenticity, in your values, while still having that time off, if you want to say, with your family and kids. I commend you for that because you figured it out. It's not elusive for you.
It's hard, but it has to come from the top. You bite your lip sometimes because you look where left and right and you say, where's so-and-so and so-and-so? And then you remember they just had a baby, right? And they need that time. So you got to have compassion and empathy as a business as well, because, your talent is your people, and they're high performing. And sometimes you forget that they're always performing. And if you don't give them that ability to reset and, take care of life's other issues, you're going to have an imbalance in your workforce.
Scream it louder for the people in the back, because that is so true and so great for any and all business owners out there. So that was incredible advice. But as we wrap up here today, what's your final piece of advice for business owners, entrepreneurs out there? Because clearly you're doing something right with what you're doing. So how can you help us all out?
Spend more time on your strengths and weaknesses and be true to yourself, right? Because you're going to operate this business. And, we spend a lot doing the SWOT analysis for consumer, for revenue, for all these other things. We don't do it in our personal lives as well. And is your family ready, right, for that push? So sometimes you expand, sometimes you're in a new round of funding or you're ready to sell your business, and you need to prepare. So in the battlefield, we would spend 75% of the time rehearsing for that mission. And we need to do that in the business world as well.
Wow, Scott, you are truly an inspiration for me, and I know for everybody listening and watching today. So I want to personally thank you for your time and just sharing your everything that you've learned, your knowledge, your information, and everything you've had. Thank you for sharing with us today.
Thank you. It's been my absolute pleasure, and it's a pleasure to meet you as well.
Absolutely. I so appreciate it. And I thank all of you for joining us today for Connecting Business. This series is brought to you by Kinetic Business. Be sure to check out all the episodes at kineticbusiness.com/connectingbusiness. Did you love the episode? Have a topic or guest idea? Email us at connectingbusiness@windstream.com. We look forward to sharing more stories with you. Until next time, stay connected.